Hi guys, welcome to Animeized. This is the English translated version of the novel Throne of Steel. The novel differs slightly from the Chinese animation or Donghua. If you want more of these videos, please smash the like button, subscribe, and turn on the notifications. Enjoy and have a blessed day.
Normally, space-type mages would need to be at least of the 8th rank to have the possibility of mastering spatial teleportation. Furthermore, it would require incredibly complex incantations, and there would also be limitations on the teleportation distance. Long Haochen, however, was conducting pinpoint teleportation through the connection between the Eternal Melody and the Tower of Eternity. Wan Yuan, on the other hand, was not the instigator, so she experienced this spatial teleportation as a bystander, in complete amazement. If someone could see at this moment, they would notice a faint silver glow enveloping her, with slight rippling fluctuations. The entire teleportation process didn't take long. And after approximately a dozen seconds, the radiance suddenly converged, and each person felt a sudden weightiness in their bodies, and as the blinding white light disappeared, they also regained a solid footing. Instinctively, they opened their eyes, except for Long Haochen, and in an instant, everyone's hearts were filled with an uncontrollable fear. A terrifying aura of death surged like a tidal wave. The kind that sent shivers down one's spine, inducing an eerie and desolate sense of hopelessness and deathly silence, causing their hair to stand on end, their bodies tensed involuntarily, and they raised their weapons in unison. At that moment, a faint golden light radiated from Long Haochen. A simple skill, Radiant Shield. The Radiant Shield, imbued with Radiance Ripple, easily enveloped all 7 of them, isolating them from the outside aura of death. The aura of death crashed against the Radiant Shield, and the Eternal Melody on Long Haochen's chest was immediately activated, emitting an aura filled with majesty that spread from Long Haochen, causing the aura of death to instantly dissipate. And it no longer dared to assault his Radiant Shield. In the memories left to Long Haochen by the catastrophe of the undead Illisec, there was a specific method for him to bring his companions to this place. It was simple, he just needed to use an area of effect skill to envelop his companions, and any area of effect skill would suffice, because using a skill would naturally trigger the release of death energy, and in turn, it would trigger the aura of the Eternal Melody. At this moment, they were still inside a cave, and the surroundings were identical to the cave of fearful wailing that Long Haochen had entered initially. But everyone knew for sure that this couldn't be the same cave of fearful wailing. In fact, it was highly likely that they were no longer on the same continent of the holy and demon continents. In the air, countless vengeful spirits drifted slowly, originally sensing their presence, and showing a desire to attack. These vengeful spirits showed a desire to attack, but with the majesty emanating from the Eternal Melody, the vengeful spirits were suddenly scared off and dispersed as if in great terror, scattering far away, to the extent that they didn't dare to approach the Tower of Eternity temporarily. For the others, it was their first time seeing the Tower of Eternity, and they couldn't help but exclaim in awe. Especially when they saw the vengeful spirits, their inner fear deepened. However, they were all elite members of the younger generation of the Temple Alliance, and they had Long Haochen protecting them, so their emotions quickly stabilized. In truth, they weren't the only ones surprised. Long Haochen himself was also greatly astonished, because the Tower of Eternity that appeared before him had undergone a change, unlike what he had seen before. The last time he had seen the Tower of Eternity, it was emitting a gray light, and the vengeful spirits were also gray. However, this time, Long Haochen was astonished to find that the Tower of Eternity had turned white. Yes, both its main form and the radiance it emitted were completely white. However, this white wasn't of the light attribute, but rather a purer form of death energy. Even the vengeful spirits had turned white, and their numbers had doubled. They had increased significantly. Had the Tower of Eternity evolved, perhaps? Doubts arose in Long Haochen's heart. Faced with this situation, he had to access his sealed memories for a search. All along, due to an inner aversion, he deliberately avoided thinking about what had happened inside the Tower of Eternity, so he wouldn't recall those memories branded deep in his mind. Now, under the influence of his thoughts, he quickly found the answer. Just as he had anticipated, the changes in the Tower of Eternity were actually a result of the war at Xingnan Pass. The existence and operation of the Tower of Eternity relied fundamentally on vast soul energy. Originally, the Tower of Eternity had its immensely terrifying soul energy somehow solidified by dormant catastrophe Illisec. It was likely related to his own soul. The Tower of Eternity's own energy was already quite formidable. However, after tens of thousands of years of refinement, although the Tower of Eternity could absorb external soul energy, its absorption was ultimately limited, especially after it was activated by Long Haochen. Its soul energy even experienced some degree of depletion. However, when Long Haochen arrived at Xingnan Pass, countless souls of deceased humans and demons were transferred here through Long Haochen's Eternal Melody, completely awakening this tower and providing it with sufficient energy. In his memories, there were some very profound things that Long Haochen couldn't comprehend, and some memories were sealed, as if his abilities weren't sufficient to access them. Nevertheless, he was still awed. Despite his strong aversion to necromancers, he had to admit that necromancer Saint Dormant Catastrophe Ilisek was an absolute genius. His memories informed him that among the things Ilisek was most proud of during his lifetime, one of them was his mastery of soul energy, which he called soul circulation. In other words, when provided with enough soul energy, he could use special methods to allow this soul energy to circulate on its own, thereby generating new soul energy. It was somewhat similar to how a man and a woman together could give birth to new life. This was why, after countless years, the Tower of Eternity remained powerful and enduring. At this moment, with the infusion of such colossal soul energy, the Tower of Eternity could truly be said to be awakened. It possessed its genuine power. "How do you all feel?" Shima Xian asked the others in a low voice. Wang Yuanyuan was mostly immersed in her previous insight into spatial laws and remained silent. Han Yu, who was usually composed, blurted out. "Insignificant, in front of this Tower of Eternity, I feel very insignificant." His words were met with agreement from the others, and Lin Xin spoke without hesitation. "I feel the same way. It's as if I'm just another vengeful spirit here, and I'm not even a strong vengeful spirit. It's truly terrifying. One can imagine how powerful and terrifying necromancer Saint Dormant Catastrophe Ilisek must have been in his prime." Long Haochen had already come back to his senses, and turned to his companions, saying, "Stay close to me, and don't leave the range of the holy light barrier. We're going into the tower." Everyone nodded, and it could be said that after arriving in this unfamiliar world, Long Haochen was their only pillar of support. Long Haochen hugged Chai tightly, but was surprised to find that Chai's body temperature seemed to have dropped, so he quickly wrote a question in her palm. What surprised Long Haochen was that Chai's response was unexpected. "I really like it here, and it seems like my reincarnation spirit furnace and reincarnation sword like it here too. My cultivation speed here will greatly improve." This answer truly surprised Long Haochen, but he was clever, and quickly found some answers. What was Chai's attribute? It had always been a mystery to everyone, and Long Haochen hadn't asked her either, and she had never mentioned it herself. If she felt comfortable and at ease here, then without a doubt, Chai's own attribute was related to death energy in some way, possibly being related to death or slaughter. That must be why she didn't want to talk about it. After a brief surprise, Long Haochen led the group slowly towards the Tower of Eternity. Watching the vengeful spirits quickly part to make way for them, the fear in the hearts of the members of Commander Level Number 21 Demon Hunting Squad gradually subsided, replaced by excitement and curiosity about the new things they were encountering. The doors of the Tower of Eternity were wide open, of course. Open for Long Haochen. As for whether anyone else would come to this brand new world, there was no need to worry at all, as the vengeful spirits outside served as the best guardians. Trying to enter the Tower of Eternity through their attacks would be futile unless they had a Hao Yu of their own. Stepping through the doors of the Tower of Eternity, the surrounding death energy instantly grew stronger. But at this moment, Long Haochen removed his holy light barrier. They had entered the Tower of Eternity, and the threat to their lives had disappeared. Since they were here to train, his companions needed to adapt to the conditions inside the Tower of Eternity, or how would they be able to fight? Trembling and shivering were inevitable reactions for everyone. Even Chai was not an exception, but Long Haochen, holding Chai, felt that her trembling was actually due to excitement, and it was a visceral kind of excitement. Chai even eagerly pulled Long Haochen's hand and wrote in his palm, "I want to cultivate for a while. I have a feeling of enlightenment." After saying this, she sat down right where she was, with her hands resting on her knees, palms facing upwards, and her fingers forming a strange mudra. Chai is fine. She wants to cultivate here for a while. Everyone, stay where you are and don't move. Get used to the aura of death here as quickly as possible. There's one thing you must remember. Absolutely do not take a step forward. Once you step forward, our training will begin. It will be difficult to resist. The death energy inside the Tower of Eternity is not actually stronger than outside, but it's pure. Pure, free of impurities. Death energy does not possess inherent aggressiveness, but it easily brings a sense of oppression to everyone. What's more important is, here, except for Long Haochen, others can't sense elements that match their own attributes, meaning they can't recover their spiritual power. Of course, this doesn't include Chai, who is already seated on the ground. You can tell from her gentle expression that she is very accustomed to this environment. Long Haochen said to his companions, "The situation here is very special. I will demonstrate what trials we will face here shortly. Your spiritual power cannot be restored here, so we'll train here for a while, then return to our world to restore our spiritual power, and come back again. Are you all clear?" As he spoke, he raised his right hand, and a blue-golden light shone, blue rain, light lotus, appeared in his hand. His left hand held the brilliant holy shield in front of him, and Long Haochen took 3 firm steps forward. These 3 steps led him to where he first entered the trial. Instantly, 2 white lights, as if triggered by a mechanism, emerged from the ground, and once again, 2 enormous skeletons appeared, one holding a shield and the other a sword, stepping on the 3 major auras of courage, faith, and strength. They charged straight at Long Haochen. This time, Long Haochen didn't have Hao Yu's assistance. But he wasn't the same Long Haochen as when he first came here. Sensing the powerful aura emanating from the two skeletons, the faces of Han Yu, Shima Xian, and others changed immediately. 6th rank, they are clearly 6th rank. The trial they just entered has 6th rank opponents. No wonder Long Haochen warned them not to act recklessly. The light attribute aura on the skeletons also surprised them greatly. Long Haochen was prepared, and a rich, liquid-like golden light instantly surged, and his wings, shining with the brilliance of the rising sun, appeared once more, spiritual wings, a symbol of the 6th rank. However, here, the wings were only symbolic, because when Long Haochen tried to flap them, he found that he couldn't fly. The function of the wings is not just limited to flying, they also have the power to gather spiritual energy. With the help of his chest Eternal Melody and Spiritual Sea, his spiritual power recovery speed was terrifyingly fast. However, inside the Tower of Eternity, the light elemental elf, Yiting, still couldn't appear, as if suppressed by the Tower of Eternity. Without Hao Yu's restraint, the two skeletons charged at Long Haochen together, and they even coordinated with each other. One of the skeletons had 2 clusters of golden flames in its eyes, and its bone sword showed signs of turning golden, while the other skeleton charged directly at Long Haochen, swinging its bone sword down heavily. They're actually cooperating. The skeleton with the golden bone sword was clearly preparing to use Azura Strike. In this situation, Long Haochen couldn't let him succeed. Intense golden and blue light shone in his right hand, and in the next moment, 2 dragon roars sounded simultaneously, one high-pitched and one deep, but they emitted a strange vibration. One golden and one blue, 2 miniature dragons shot out like lightning, instantly colliding with the skeleton that was about to use Azura Strike. In a deafening explosion, the bone shield the skeleton tried to defend with, and its bone sword shattered instantly, and the bones in its chest were shattered as well. However, it still didn't fall. Unfortunately, the evolved version of Light Rain Hibiscus Thrust was too much for it to handle. The pressure from the entwined light and water dragons crushed its already damaged body, and a white light flew into Long Haochen's chest. Using Light Rain Hibiscus Thrust once more, Long Haochen found that the biggest change after the evolution of this skill wasn't an increase in attack power, or rather, its attack power was only slightly enhanced, and it couldn't directly kill a fully powered skeleton. What's most important is the limiting ability it gained after evolving. This was Long Haochen's most lacking area, so it undoubtedly provided him with great assistance. However, Long Haochen didn't expect that the restraining power of the light and water dragons would be so strong after trapping the enemy. After all, this was only the second time he had used the evolved Light Rain Hibiscus Thrust. As Light Rain Hibiscus Thrust was unleashed, the attack of the other skeleton had also arrived. He activated the shield arts of the brilliant Holy Shield, using Divine Guard Block. With a loud clang, Long Haochen remained immobile, while the skeleton's bone sword was deflected upwards. The current Long Haochen wasn't easy to mess with. He was already at the 6th rank, and he even had the brilliant Holy Shield, a splendid great equipment. Light Rain Hibiscus Thrust returned at the right time, and it was time for Long Haochen's performance. Twin dragons of light rain erupted, countless points of light transformed into dazzling halos and descended from the sky. The skeleton had a bone shield as well. But its biggest weakness was its inferior equipment, and its own defense wasn't very strong. Under the assault of the twin dragons of light rain, it was impossible for it to unleash a powerful attack like Azura Strike. After twin dragons of light rain, Long Haochen followed up with the release of the Holy Sword from Moving Illusion. Amid a dragon's roar, the Holy Sword version of Ascending Dragon Strike erupted, directly shattering the skeleton's body. This time, the golden sphere that represented the Azura Strike training method didn't appear again, but a white light still surged into Long Haochen's body. Without a doubt, this was 20 points of spiritual energy. However, Long Haochen certainly wouldn't waste it by absorbing it right now. It only took a few breaths to take down the 2 skeletons, and after advancing to the 6th rank, Long Haochen's overall strength had improved significantly, especially his personal combat capabilities, and he managed to defeat the 2 skeletons without Hao Yu's assistance. However, it was still not an easy battle. Because there were no worries behind, he could be said to have launched an all-out attack. Both Light Rain Hibiscus Thrust and Moving Illusion were used, preventing the formidable attacks of the 2 skeletons from erupting. However, even so, the members of Commander Level No. 21 Demon Hunting Squad still recognized the strength of the skeletons. Long Haochen's current issue is his 6th rank skills, although he has his father's inherited ring. But because he just reached the 6th rank, some of the 6th rank skills haven't been comprehended yet, let alone the Guardian Knight's skills. He would have to return to the Night Temple to learn them, but of course, he couldn't wait that long, so he plans to learn the skills from his master, Han Qian, in the next few days. Secret techniques cannot be casually taught, but ordinary 6th rank skills are generally teachable. Has everyone seen it clearly? Long Haochen turned to his comrades, and explained the function of the white light orbs. One orb can increase spiritual power by 10 points. For Long Haochen, it would still take quite some time to cultivate, let alone the others. They don't have the Son of Light constitution. Adapting to the energy of death isn't too difficult. After all, they aren't aggressive. It's just that not being able to replenish their spiritual power makes everyone feel uncomfortable. After all the comrades expressed that they had no issues, Long Haochen nodded and said, "Continue forward. I don't know how strong the trials ahead will be, but I will do my best to protect everyone. If we can't resist, then we'll retreat quickly. As long as we leave a certain range, the skeletons won't continue to attack. Furthermore, every time we leave and come back here, the trials will start again with these two skeletons." Sima Xian shook his power pill of light and said, "Boss, let's begin. I can't wait any longer." Long Haochen nodded and said, "Let's go." As he said that, he walked in the front, while the other 5 maintained their usual battle formation and advanced forward. Long Haochen's speed was very slow, as the tests had to be triggered one by one. Otherwise, if too many were triggered at once, it would be a disaster for everyone. Continuing forward, they had walked about 5 steps, when Long Haochen suddenly felt a warning in his heart. He instinctively raised his shield in his hand, and with a light clang, a sharp spiritual power nearly pierced through the defense of the brilliant holy shield. Fortunately, the shield arts on Long Haochen's shield were activated in time, which blocked the attack. A phantom figure flashed and disappeared. Long Haochen was suddenly shocked, and he shouted loudly. He released the twin dragons of light rain from his blue rain, Light Lotus. Just at that moment, there was a muffled grunt from behind Long Haochen, and Wan Yuanyuan's body staggered back, with a deep scratch appearing on her armor. Assassins, they were assassins, and there was more than one. The twin dragons of light rain missed, failing to hit the enemy who was widely spread. It can be said that assassins are what Long Haochen's group fears the most right now, because they don't have a true priest among them to cast true sight, so they can't detect the presence of assassins. With Hao Yu absent, they couldn't see through the assassin's invisibility. Long Haochen hurriedly released a holy light barrier, enveloping all his comrades within it. After he had entered this place for the first time, he only vaguely understood that the trials here wouldn't harm his life, but whether his companions brought in with him would receive the same treatment was uncertain. Long Haochen originally thought that the next test might involve an increase in the number of skeletons. But who knew, it turned out to be assassins. "Protect Lin Xin and Yin Er!" Long Haochen shouted loudly, and just at that moment, the holy light barrier he had released disappeared as easily as a punctured balloon. Long Haochen's team had many strengths, but they also had weaknesses, and not having a true priest was one of them. Another was not having sufficiently powerful area attacks. Lin Xin, the magician, could only be used for defense. A layer of red light rippled from Lin Xin's staff, and he unexpectedly cast 4 elemental fire shields in succession to protect himself and Chen Yin Er. 2 consecutive grunts sounded, and Sima Xian and Han Yu were both attacked one after the other. Sima Xian was a bit luckier, as his newly acquired armor was very sturdy, but Han Yu wasn't as lucky. His armor was still the original one. It could barely be considered as a demon hunt squad level equipment. He was instantly stabbed by the unseen assassin, and blood gushed out from his chest. This attack was extremely sharp, and in the midst of Han Yu's grunt, his body swayed dangerously close to falling. Fortunately, the power of the Soul Link was unleashed, and everyone shared the force of the attack for him. Of course, everyone wouldn't just sit and wait to die. They quickly released their skills into the air back to back, intending to drive the enemy away. However, the 2 unseen assassins disappeared once again. Such strong spiritual power, concentrated in one place. Han Yu's voice sounded a bit hoarse. The sharp spiritual power felt like steel needles drilling through his body, even though the Soul Link shared the burden with him. The pain he endured was still extremely intense, his face turned pale, and his forehead was covered in cold sweat. What should they do? At this moment, the same word appeared in everyone's minds. They had no chance of contending with what might be 2 assassins. They came and went without a trace. Their evasive abilities were extremely powerful. Even Long Haochen's timely twin dragons of light rain couldn't catch their bodies. The only explanation was that these 2 assassins had cultivation levels above the 6th rank. Just as Long Haochen was about to give the order to retreat, suddenly, a black figure rushed in from behind. With a light clang, the black figure appeared at Long Haochen's side, and then a cloud of white mist sprayed from the black figure's hand, and another figure suddenly appeared in the empty space in front of them. This figure seemed to lack a physical form, somewhat like the vengeful spirits outside, but it had a humanoid appearance. Long Haochen wouldn't miss such a good opportunity. With a flash of white light, the holy guiding spirit furnace successfully linked him with the opponent. And at the same time, the furnace's pulling power activated, pulling the opponent directly towards him. The suddenly appearing black shadow flashed again, this time appearing in front of Han Yu. With another clang and a burst of white mist, and the form of another assassin became visible. The timely appearing black shadow was naturally Chai Er. She had been meditating at the entrance before, but suddenly felt the crisis here, so she acted immediately. Although she had lost her 4 senses, Chai Er had been training since childhood to endure the loss of her 6 senses, so her sense and touch were extremely sharp. Without the four senses, her other two senses were enhanced. And in the nick of time, she blocked the attacks of the two assassins. Long Haochen had always been the leader of the team, and all the attention was on him. But being a saintess of reincarnation with the same level of talent, Chai-Er was not lacking in wisdom. Being willing to let her light shine behind Long Haochen didn't mean Chai-Er was not intelligent. Sensing the situation of her companions, she immediately understood the nature of the enemies they were facing. Those two bursts of white mist were the assassins' revealing powder used by assassins, which was actually a white powder used to reveal hidden assassins. It was specially designed to break the invisibility of assassins. It came in handy at this moment. Long Haochen had one of them under control with his pull, and the second assassin, appearing right after, naturally became the target of the other's attacks. Han Yu had been attacked just moments ago, and he was feeling unwell, so he instinctively took a step back and raised his shield. Wan Yuanyuan's shield of giant god stopped with a piercing sound, followed by Sima Xian's power pill of light. This time, they could finally see the actions of the assassins clearly. Faced with the two-pronged attack, the assassin suddenly retreated like lightning. Its movements were extremely elusive, as if its body had no weight at all, and it had already evaded their attacks before they could land. Its body made a very natural turn in midair, and it lunged towards Chai-Er. Their attacks couldn't keep up with its evasion speed. What was going on? The vengeful spirit assassins in the Tower of Eternity were obviously not easy to deal with. Unfortunately, the attacks of others might not work, but don't forget that they had Long Haochen. The vengeful spirits indeed had no weight, and they were highly resistant to physical attacks. But when faced with the pull of the holy guiding spirit furnace, they were greatly restricted, and the lack of physical attack ability became their biggest weakness. The vengeful spirit pulled by Long Haochen screamed as it was forcibly drawn towards him. With no other choice, it had to launch an attack towards Long Haochen. Its hands were like two sharp spikes, releasing dozens of light spots that enveloped Long Haochen's body. But it was met with Long Haochen's powerful strike. It was the Azura strike unleashed by the Blue Rain, Light Lotus. With a piercing scream, the Azura strike arrived, and a powerful blade of light formed in the air. This was not just a physical attack, but a magical martial strike combining Blue Rain, Light Lotus, and light elements. Without a doubt, the vengeful spirit assassin was instantly cut in half, and its body was crushed by the formidable liquid spiritual power. Long Haochen's second release of the holy guiding spirit furnace was completed at this moment. Just as the other vengeful spirit assassin lunged at Chai-Er, its body was forcefully pulled, and next, the vengeful spirit assassin faced was the daybreak strike unleashed by Long Haochen's Blue Rain, Light Lotus. It was proven that the Azura strike was unnecessary. Even the combination of the daybreak strike and twin dragons of light rain was too much for this vengeful spirit assassin. It disappeared right in front of Long Haochen. Of course, the deaths of the two vengeful spirit assassins also brought Long Haochen two new clusters of white light. However, the golden cluster of light still didn't appear. Although they had dealt with two vengeful spirit assassins, everyone still had a cold sweat behind their backs, especially Han Yu. He had only just managed to dispel the sharp spiritual power that had invaded his body, and during this process, the golden light of the soul link that shared their lives had never disappeared. In other words, everyone had been helping him endure the continuous damage from that sharp energy. Han Yu said with lingering fear, "If it weren't for the soul link, I would probably have lost my fighting ability from that last attack. If they had followed up with another attack, it would have been certain death. Such incredible attacking power." Long Haochen nodded. These vengeful spirit assassins are similar to the Bone Core assassins from before. They have powerful attacks, but weak defenses. The vengeful spirit assassin's biggest feature is probably their speed. Without the pull of the holy guiding spirit furnace, it would have been even more difficult. Sima Xian rubbed his bald head. "How about I try to learn true sight later?"